Imagine this. You wake up in the middle of the night. Your heart pounding, your skin slick with sweat. The room is dark, but your mind is ablaze with images you can't quite place. Shadows of thoughts, fragments of emotions, a storm of something you can't name. You try to shake it off, to tell yourself it was just a dream, but the feeling lingers. A weight pressing against your chest. It's not fear, not exactly, it's something deeper, something older. It's the part of you that you've spent your entire life running from. The part you've buried under layers of politeness, productivity, and propriety. It's your dark side. What if I told you that this shadow, this part of you that you've been taught to fear, to suppress, to deny, is not your enemy? What if it's the key to your greatest power, your deepest wisdom, your most authentic self? It is the very thing you've been running from, is what you've been searching for, all along. We live in a world that worships the light. We're told to be positive, to be productive, to be perfect. We're taught to chase happiness as if it's a destination, to avoid pain as if it's a curse, to suppress our anger, our sadness, our fear, as if they're weaknesses. But what if this relentless pursuit of light is actually keeping us in the dark? What if by denying our shadows, we're cutting ourselves off from the very source of our power? Consider this paradox: the more we try to be only light, the more we become consumed by darkness. The more we suppress our anger, the more it festers into resentment. The more we deny our sadness, the more it grows into despair. And yet, we keep running, keep hiding, keep pretending. We plaster on smiles, we fill our schedules, we numb ourselves with distractions, all in an effort to outrun the very thing that could set us free, but the darkness isn't what we think it is. It is not a void, not an absence, but a presence. It is not something to be feared, but something to be understood. It is not the enemy, but the ally. Darkness is not the opposite of light, but its counterpart, its complement, its necessary balance. Think about it: without darkness, there is no light. Without chaos, there is no order. The universe is built on duality, on the tension between opposites, on the dance between creation and destruction. And yet, we've been taught to see only one side of the coin, to value only one half of the equation. We've been taught to fear the dark, to avoid it, to deny it. But what if this fear is the real darkness? And the real danger isn't in embracing our shadows, but in refusing to face them. And what if the key to unlocking your full potential lies not in the light, but in the dark? And the path to true freedom, true power, begins not with running from your shadows, but with turning towards them. This is the great question, the one that haunts us all. Whether we realize it or not. What are we so afraid of? What are we running from? And what would happen if we stopped running? What would happen if we faced our shadows, not with fear, but with curiosity, with courage, with compassion? What would we find? And what would we become? The answer is not simple, nor is it easy. It requires us to confront the parts of ourselves that we've spent a lifetime avoiding, to question the beliefs we've been taught to accept, to challenge the very foundations of our identity. But the reward is great here. It is nothing less than the discovery of our true selves, our hidden power, our deepest wisdom. So are you ready to take the first step? Are you ready to turn towards the darkness, to face the shadows, to embrace the unknown? Are you ready to discover the hidden power of your dark side? Let's dive into this amazing episode queued for you at the Philosopher's Night. Let the journey begin. The problem: is not the darkness itself, it's our relationship to it. For centuries, humanity has been conditioned to see the dark side of human nature as something to be eradicated, something to be ashamed of, something to be feared. This isn't just a cultural phenomenon, it's a deeply ingrained psychological and philosophical bias that has shaped the way we see ourselves and the world around us. But where did this bias come from, and why does it hold such power over us? To understand this, we must first confront an uncomfortable truth, which is the rejection of the dark side is not just a personal choice, it's a societal mandate. From the moment we're born, we're taught to divide the world into binaries, good and evil, light and dark, success and failure. These binaries are not neutral, they're hierarchical. Light is good, darkness is bad. Success is virtuous, failure is shameful. We're taught to strive for one and avoid the other, at all costs. But this division is not natural, it's constructed, and it's this construction that lies at the root of our suffering. Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist, called this rejected part of ourselves as the shadow. The shadow, according to Jung, is the repository of all the traits, emotions and desires that we deem unacceptable, like our anger, our jealousy, our greed and fear. It's the part of us that we disown, the part we project onto others, the part we bury deep within our subconsciousness. But here's the paradox: the more we try to suppress the shadow, the more it grows in power. It doesn't disappear, it simply takes on new forms. It becomes the voice of self-sabotage, the source of irrational fear, and the root of unexplained anxieties. Why do we do this? Why do we reject such a fundamental part of ourselves? The answer lies in our fear of the unknown. The dark side represents everything we cannot control, and so, we build walls, we create rules. We construct identities, we do everything in our power to keep the darkness at bay. But here's the problem: these walls don't protect us, they imprison us. By denying our shadows, we cut ourselves off from the full spectrum of human experience. We become one-dimensional, fragmented, incomplete. We lose touch with our creativity and vitality. We become stranger to ourselves. This is not a new problem. Philosophers and thinkers have been grappling with it for centuries. Friedrich Nietzsche, the provocative German philosopher, saw the rejection of the dark side as a form of self-betrayal. In his view, the pursuit of an idealized, sanitized version of humanity, what he called the ascetic ideal, was a denial of life itself. One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star, he wrote. Nietzsche understood that the dark side is not something to be overcome, it's something to be embraced. It's the source of our creativity, our passion, our power. Similarly, Arthur Schopenhauer, the pessimistic philosopher, saw the dark side as an inescapable part of the human condition. He believed that suffering was not an aberration but a fundamental aspect of existence. And yet, he also believed that it was through suffering that we could achieve transcendence. "The pain of the mind is worse than the pain of the body," he quoted. In other words, the real suffering comes not from the darkness itself, but from our resistance to it. Even Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and founder of logotherapy, recognized the transformative power of the dark side. In his seminal work, Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl argued that it is through confronting our suffering that we find meaning. When we are no longer able to change a situation, he wrote, we are challenged to change ourselves. Frankl understood that the dark side is not an obstacle to be avoided, it's the teacher to be embraced. But if the dark side is so powerful, so transformative, why do we continue to reject it? The answer lies in our conditioning. From a young age, we're taught to associate darkness with danger, with evil. We're told that to be good, we must be light. We must be kind. We must be agreeable. We must fit into the mold that society has created for us. And so we learn to hide our shadows, to suppress our true selves, to conform to the expectations of others. This conditioning is reinforced by our cultural narratives. In myths, fairies, and religious texts, darkness is often portrayed as the enemy. Like it's the dragon to be slain. These stories shape our collective unconsciousness, reinforcing the idea that the dark side is something to be feared, something to be conquered. But what if these stories are wrong? What if the dragon is not the enemy, but the guardian of treasure, and the dark side is not the problem, but the solution? This is the hidden problem. Our rejection of the dark side is not just a personal failing, it's a cultural pathology. It's a symptom of a deeper sickness, a sickness that has infected our minds, our hearts and souls, and until we confront this sickness, we will remain trapped in a prison of our own making. But there is a way out, there is a path to freedom. And it begins with a radical shift in perspective. A shift that challenges everything we've been taught to believe. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Let the journey truly begin. The rejection of the dark side doesn't just leave us fragmented, it shapes the very fabric of our reality. It influences how we feel, how we relate to others, and how we navigate the world. The consequences of this denial are not always obvious, but they are profound. They ripple through our lives, in ways we rarely notice, quietly shaping our decisions, our relationships, and our sense of self. Consider this. Every time you suppress an emotion, every time you deny a desire, every time you silence a part of yourself, you're not just avoiding discomfort, you're creating a debt. This debt doesn't disappear. It accumulates, it festers, it grows, and, eventually, it demands payment. This payment often comes in the form of psychological and emotional turmoil. Depression, anxiety, addiction, chronic stress, these are not just random afflictions. They are the body's way of forcing us to confront what we've been avoiding. They are the shadow's way of saying, you can't ignore me forever. Take anger, for example. Anger is one of the most stigmatized emotions in our society. We're taught that anger is dangerous, that it's destructive, that it's something to be suppressed at all costs, and so, we swallow our anger. We bury it. We pretend it doesn't exist. But anger doesn't go away. It transforms. It becomes resentment, bitterness, passive aggressiveness. It seeps into our relationships, poisoning them from the inside. It manifests as physical symptoms, headaches, high blood pressure, chronic pain. It becomes a silent destroyer, wreaking havoc on our lives, without us even realizing it. The same is true for sadness. We live in a culture that glorifies happiness and pathologizes sadness. We're told that sadness is a sign of weakness, that it's something to be fixed, medicated, or numbed away. And so, we avoid sadness, at all costs. We distract ourselves with work, with entertainment, with substances. But sadness, like anger, doesn't disappear. It lingers. It grows. It becomes depression, a heaviness that weighs us down, a void that swallows us whole. And then there's fear. Fear is perhaps the most primal of all emotions, and yet it's also the most misunderstood. We're taught that fear is a sign of weakness, that it's something to be conquered, overcome. or ignored. But fear, too, has a purpose. It's a signal, a warning, a call to action. When we suppress fear, we cut ourselves off from this vital source of information. We become reckless, impulsive, and paralyzed. We lose touch with our instincts, our intuition, our ability to navigate the world with clarity and confidence. But the consequences of denying the dark side goes beyond individual suffering. They shape our collective reality. They influence the way we relate to others, the way we structure our societies, and how we respond to crises. Think about the way we treat those who embody the qualities we reject in ourselves. The angry person is ostracized, the sad person is pitted, the fearful person is ridiculed. We project our own shadows onto others, creating scapegoats, outcasts, and enemies. We divide the world into us and them, reinforcing the very binaries that keep us trapped. This projection is not just a personal failing, it's a societal one. It's the root of prejudice, discrimination, and violence. It's the reason we wage wars, build walls, and destroy the planet. But perhaps the most insidious consequence of denying the dark side is the way it shapes our sense of self. When we reject our shadows, we reject a fundamental part of who we are. We create a false self, a persona that we present to the world. This persona may be polished, perfect and pleasing, but it's also hollow, a facade, a lie. And here's the tragic irony: the more we invest in this false persona, the more we lose touch with our true selves. We become strangers to ourselves, disconnected from our desires and purpose. We lose our authenticity and vitality, but it doesn't have to be this way. There is another path, a path that leads not away from the darkness, but through it. A path that requires courage, curiosity, and compassion. This path is not easy. It requires us to confront the parts of ourselves that we've spent a lifetime avoiding. It requires us to question the beliefs we've been taught to accept, and challenge the very foundations of our identity. But the reward is great here, which is nothing less than the discovery of our true selves and our deepest wisdom. Now comes the million-dollar question. How to break free? To break free from the prison of our own making, we must first understand that the walls we've built are not made of stone or steel. They're made of fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of judgment, and fear of ourselves. These walls are not impenetrable, they are illusions, constructs of the mind, stories we've been telling ourselves for so long that we've forgotten they're just stories. The first step in breaking free is to question these stories. To ask ourselves, who told me that anger is dangerous? Who taught me that sadness is weakness, and who convinced me that fear is the enemy? And most importantly, who decided that the dark side is something to be feared? This questioning is not an intellectual exercise, it's a rebellion. It's a refusal to accept the narratives that have been handed to us, a refusal to live in a world defined by binaries and hierarchies. It's a declaration of independence, a reclaiming of our power, and a step into the unknown. But rebellion is not enough. To truly break free, we must also cultivate a new relationship with our shadows. We must learn to see them not as enemies, but as allies. Not as something to be feared, but as something to be understood. This begins with curiosity. Instead of running from our anger, our sadness, our fear, we must turn towards them. We must ask, what is this emotion trying to tell me? What is it protecting me from? What is it asking me to do? Anger, for example, is often a signal that a boundary has been crossed and a value has been violated. Instead of suppressing it, we can view it as a guide, a source of strength. Sadness, on the other hand, is often a sign of loss, of grief, of unmet needs. Instead of numbing it, we can honor it, sit with it, allow it to teach us about what truly matters. Fear, too, has its purpose. It's a call to action, a reminder of our vulnerability, a prompt to prepare, to adapt, to grow. But curiosity is not enough. To truly embrace our shadows, we must also cultivate compassion. We must learn to hold our darkness with kindness, with love. This is not easy. It requires us to confront the parts of ourselves that we've been taught to hate, to reject, to despise. It requires us to see ourselves not as broken, but as whole, not as flawed, but as human. This compassion is not just for ourselves, it's for others as well. When we learn to embrace our own shadows, we become more understanding, more empathetic, more forgiving of others. We stop projecting our darkness onto them, stop seeing them as enemies, as threats, as mirrors of our own fears. We begin to see them as they truly are, complex, multifaceted, imperfectly human. But even curiosity and compassion are not enough. To truly break free, we must also take action. We must integrate our shadows into our lives, not as something to be hidden, but as something to be expressed. This integration is not about indulging every impulse or acting on every emotion. It's about finding healthy, constructive ways to channel our darkness. Anger, for example, can be channeled into activism, into art, into assertiveness. Sadness can be channeled into creativity, into connection, into compassion. Fear can be channeled into preparation, into courage, into growth. This integration is not a one-time event, it's a lifelong process. It requires us to constantly check in with ourselves, to constantly question our assumptions, to constantly adapt and evolve. It requires us to be brave, to be honest. But the reward is worth it. When we embrace our shadows, we become more authentic, more alive, more powerful. We become more resilient, more adaptable, more capable of navigating the complexities of life. We become more connected to ourselves, to others, to the world around us. This is the rebellion, not a rejection of the light, but an embrace of the dark. Not a denial of our humanity, but a celebration of it. But the journey is not over. There is one final step, one final revelation, one final truth that awaits us. The ultimate truth is this: the dark side is not separate from the light. It is not the opposite of the light, it is not even the absence of the light. The dark side is the light, just seen from a different angle, understood in a different way, experienced in a different form. This realization is not just a philosophical insight, it's a paradigm shift. It redefines how we see ourselves, how we see others, how we see the world. It dissolves the binaries, the hierarchies, that have kept us trapped. It reveals a deeper, more fundamental truth, that everything is interconnected, that everything is one. Think about it: without darkness, there is no light. Without chaos, there is no order. Without death, there is no life. These are not opposites, they are complements. They are two sides of the same coin, two halves of the same whole. And yet, we've been taught to see only one side of the coin, to value only one half of the whole. We've been taught to fear the dark, to avoid it, to deny it. But this fear is the real darkness. This avoidance is the real chaos. This denial is the real death. The ultimate truth is that the dark side is not something to be feared, but something to be embraced. It is not something to be avoided, but something to be integrated. This is not just a personal truth, it's a universal one. It's a truth that has been recognized by mystics, philosophers, and artists throughout history. It's the truth of the Tao, which teaches that light and dark are inseparable, that they arise together, that they define each other. It's the truth of the alchemists, who sought to transform lead into gold, not by rejecting the base, but by refining it. It's the truth of the poets, who find beauty in the broken. This truth is also a call to action. It's a call to stop running, to stop hiding, to stop pretending. It's a call to turn towards the darkness, to face the shadows, to embrace the unknown. It's a call to reclaim our power, our authenticity, and our humanity. But this call is not just for us as individuals, it's for us as a species. The challenges we face today, like climate change, social inequality, political polarization, are not just external problems, they are reflections of our internal divisions. They are the shadows we've been running from, the debts we've been accumulating, the truths we've been denying. To solve these problems, we must first solve the problem within ourselves. We must integrate our shadows, not just as individuals, but as a collective. We must learn to see the darkness not as an enemy, but as an ally. We must learn to embrace the chaos, the uncertainty, the imperfection that is an inherent part of life. This is not easy. It requires us to confront our deepest fears, our deepest insecurities, our deepest wounds. It requires us to let go of the illusions, the masks, the stories that have kept us trapped. It requires us to step into the unknown, to trust in the process, to surrender to the flow of life. But the reward is worth it. When we embrace the dark side, we become more whole, more authentic, more alive. We become more resilient, more adaptable, more capable of navigating the complexities of life. We become more connected to ourselves, to others, to the world around us. And in this connection, we find something even greater, a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning, a sense of belonging. This is the ultimate truth, that the dark side is not the enemy but the teacher. It is not the obstacle, but the path, and it is not the end, but the beginning. So, are you ready to take the final step? Are you ready to embrace the darkness? To face the shadows? To step into the unknown? Are you ready to discover the hidden power of your dark side? I think you are. If you liked this episode at the Philosopher's Night, help us grow. Hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Thanks.